Hi guys, it's Mishel, Deception Bytes, and I am coming back, as I promised, with part 2 of July 20th Q-related news. Now, it is 5:37 p.m. Eastern Time. Woohoo! Not sure why I'm excited about that, but sure, why not be excited? So let's get into what I have to talk about tonight. There is quite a bit to cover here, but I'm going to try to cover a lot of ground quickly. And I want to cover, first of all, a couple of misconceptions that are going around. I did notice on my YouTube channel, there was some comments about the lights going out. Now, of course, we know that they are referring to the lights going out at the press conference with President Trump. I think I played that for you, not last video, but the video before, and the lights were obviously on some sort of a dimmer switch, and they went down and came back up. And of course, it was at the time that Trump was talking about the intelligence agencies and said, well, that must be the intelligence agencies once the lights went out. And then when it came back up, he said, asked if everybody was okay, and then continued. Well, a lot of people are making reference to another post that Q had made, and I did go out and find the post because I wanted to hear exactly what it said, because I did not remember it the way people are saying it was said. And so I did want to have it in front of me when I talk to you guys, because I think that people are assuming things in error. Now, this is the one from November 2nd, 2017, and Q says, "Fellow patriots, I'm being advised actions have created accelerated counteractions. We have not yet ascertained the scope of the attack. Watch the news outlets. POTUS Twitter takedown was not by accident, as referenced several hours ago. Should the lights go out, please know we are in control. Do not panic. We are prepared and assets are in place. God bless. I must go for good at this point. Q." Now, some people are alluding to this reference and saying that Q was saying that when the lights went out, that he would be gone for good at this point and he's never going to post again. I don't believe that. I don't buy into that. I think that it's faulty reasoning, faulty logic, and I'll tell you why. Because at that point, in context of what was happening at that time, POTUS Twitter had been taken down, several other people's Twitter had been taken down, several Facebook accounts had been taken down. There was all sorts of things happening very quickly in terms of censoring the message, because those in control and those on the left side were saying, uh-oh, this is getting out there, we got to shut this down. So immediately, everything was being censored, and I think that what Q was saying is, should the lights go out? Should the board go down? That was the way he was that was the way he was communicating to us at that time, and what he was saying. Now, should the lights go out, don't panic. So if the board goes down, which it has on a few occasions gone down, so this wasn't completely out there thinking, should Twitter completely go down? Should Facebook completely go down? Should all of these platforms that we use to communicate go down? He's saying, don't panic, we're in control. And he says, we're prepared and assets are in place. Okay, well, that makes sense. For that period of time, that made sense, and it said, I must go for good at this point. Well, as far as I know, and I'm going to have to go back and look at this as well, Q had been posting and then nothing, and then came back with this post. So I think he was saying, it's time for me to go for good tonight, because, I've said all I'm going to say. I don't believe that this was in allusion to something that would happen, November, December, January, February, March, April, May. 8 months later? I don't think so, because I think that Q is quite aware that most people's memory do not last 8 months. So, yes, I had some vague thing remembering about lights going out, but I couldn't remember the context. I had to go out and look at what exactly was posted, and it makes sense for what was posted at that time, but it does not make sense for what just happened, a few days ago with the lights being dimmed. What does he need? Don't panic. Well, who would have panicked when the light went down for like 2 seconds and back up again? Did anybody panic? I didn't panic. Did you panic? Do you know anybody who panicked? Do you think that they would need to have assets in place and be prepared for that light outage that lasted like 2-3 seconds? I don't think so. So let's stop being weird people and getting into woo-woo land. And I'm not blaming anybody. Like if you are one of them that mentioned this, don't think that I am, coming down on you or calling you stupid or anything else. I had to go back myself and find the tweet, or the post rather, before I could even comment on it. So it's not that I think, anything about that, but I did want to jump on that before it gains traction, because people tend to pick that up and go, oh, see, yep, that's what this means. No more Q posts. No, I don't think it means that at all. And I do think that Q will be back at some point. And I think that we are all big boys and big girls, and we can hold our own while Q is busy doing whatever. We can do what we're doing. We can watch the news, which is what we're continually told to do. Watch what's happening around us. That's what we're doing. Watch what's going on. Watch the people involved. Go back and look at old posts. I may do that as well. But let's calm down on the Q's not going to ever post again. Like, seriously, come on, people. Come on. So, I'm not blaming the people on my channel. I'm seeing this other places. I'm not blaming you guys. I mean, I think that for the most part, the people that are listening here are wanting the truth and open to the truth. And I'm not saying that I have the truth. I'm saying that together we put pieces together. That's what I'm saying. We're all needed. I'm no more important than any of you. I'm no more intelligent than any of you, whatever. So I wanted to mention that. Now, the second thing I wanted to mention is the whole JFK thing, the whole JFK Jr., because now they're running with it. Well, Q is JFK Jr. Okay, now somebody just sent me a bunch of information, and in case they think that I'm talking about them, I'm not, because I had been looking into this probably a week before you emailed me this stuff. I will look at the stuff that you emailed me. I have not yet, but I will, but I don't believe it. And, I will look through the material. I have looked through several things, but here's why I don't believe it. Okay, it's the whole principle of Occam's razor, which is whatever solution to a problem requires the least. Now, forgive me because I'm probably butchering this, but the whatever solution to a problem requires the least amount of suppositions or well, let me illustrate it to you, because I can't exactly remember how it's worded, but I do know what it means. Let's say, as many are now purporting, that JFK Jr. didn't die in the plane crash, and that he is Q. Okay, let's assume that. Okay, so we've got two things that might be true. Either he died in the plane crash. Now, I'm not saying that there wasn't foul play involved. I fully believe there was foul play involved. But either he's dead or he's alive and he's Q. Let's take these two things, because a lot of people are claiming, yep, he's alive, he's Q. And other people are claiming, no, he died in a plane crash and through foul play. And then other people, of course, the mainstream, are just saying, well, his plane went down because he was an inexperienced pilot, which is not true at all. So, well, which one of those requires the least amount of supposition or because we have to, if JFK is alive, we would have to assume that he faked his death, or somebody faked his death, right? Then we'd have to account for, where's he been all this time? He's got one of the most recognizable names, not names, but rather faces in the world. How's he been hiding for all these years? What about his wife? His wife has a very recognizable face, absolutely beautiful woman. Where's she been? Why has she not been seen in public? There's too many things that we would have to assume that this has all been part of a big plan since then, and he faked his own death for whatever reason, knowing he was going to be. Now, I'm not saying it could be true, but logic tells us it is not true. Logic tells us that. Now, having said that, I promise you guys, I will look into this deeply. I have looked into it superficially, probably a little bit deeper than superficially, but not in depth. If you want me to look into this in depth and tell you, conclusively what I think, I will. But right now, with what I've seen so far, it would require too much conjecture to be true. Too much. And that's just my logic speaking, okay? So at this point, I don't entertain any ideas that JFK Jr. is Q. Not at all. But having said that, in all fairness, if you want me to look into it and you really want me to dive into it deeply, I will. So there you go. That's where I stand on that. Not convinced. It defies logic as far as I'm concerned. But I will look into it, and I am a person that when I find information that defies my bias, I change my bias. Do you know what I'm saying? If I believe, one thing, and then all of a sudden I'm presented with a barrage of evidence that cannot be refuted, then I'm like, okay, well, I've got all this, I've got a plethora of sources that are valid and irrefutable, and over here I've got my belief, which isn't standing up to that. Okay, well, my belief has to go. So there you go. Now I'm going to move on. Alrighty, here we have a special report. John Brennan misses communist Russia. John Brennan anti-Trump tweets grow more and more maniacal. His latest tweet holds that Donald Trump's Russia diplomacy in Helsinki rises to and exceeds the threshold of high crimes and misdemeanors. It was nothing short of treasonous. That tells people all they need to know about the unseriousness of the left's impeachment drive, not to mention exposing once again the demented malice behind the Obama administration spying on the Trump campaign. The unhinged criticism is also hilariously rich, given that John Brennan, who supported the Soviet-controlled American Communist Party, meets the textbook definition of a useful idiot for the Russians. At the height of the Cold War, he was rooting for the Reds, casting his vote in 1976 for Gus Hall, the American Communist Party's presidential candidate. If anyone is adept at serving as a dupe for the Russians, it is John Brennan. To paraphrase John Kerry, he was for them before he was against them. He was for them before he was against them. What changed? How could Brennan support the Soviet Union, even to the point of voting for one of its puppets, but then hysterically denounce any diplomacy toward Putin's Russia? The answer lies in Russia's shedding of communism. Brennan, who refused to take his oath as CIA director on the Bible, misses the days of atheistic Marxism and fears the revival of a Christian Russia Brennan, while walking the halls of the CIA festooned with LGBT buttons, would rant to colleagues about Putin's refusal to allow gay pride parades in Moscow. Brennan deplored Reagan's description of the Soviet Union as an evil empire and joined other leftists in demanding that he pursue detente with Marxist thugs who make Putin look like a piker. Not sure what a piker is. Where Russia still collectivist, he would be using his Twitter account, which boasts his belief in the collective future, to praise, not trash, diplomatic gestures. And anyone familiar with Brennan's past, which includes not only supporting the evil empire of the Soviets, but also the evil empire of radical Islam, his time as Obama's CIA director was marked by apologetics for the thugs of the Muslim Brotherhood, ludicrous attempts to sanitize the concept of jihad, and nonstop whitewashing of the problem of Islamic terrorism. Can only laugh at his anti-Trump antics. That the media gives this fulminating fool and fraud a platform is a measure of its own lack of seriousness and absurdly sudden hawkishness. The outrage about the Trump-Putin meeting is empty noise generated by the American last crowd to hurt an American first president. It won't work. From Hillary to Pelosi to Brennan, they are the little lefties who cried wolf after decades of feeding wolves. Their credibility is nil. Their counsel is immature and reckless. Not only were Trump's comments imbecilic, this is a quote, not only were Trump's comments imbecilic, he is wholly in the pocket of Putin, gasped Brennan. Republican patriots, where are you? Other than members of the resistance and reflective Trump haters, no one takes these juvenile smears seriously. It is humorous to see these self-proclaimed adults hazing Trump for not behaving like a childish hothead. If another president were prioritizing peace over retaliatory tit-for-tat, they would praise him. But since the diplomacy is coming from Trump, it has to be treasonous. Brennan isn't just throwing stones from his glass house, but boulders. He once said that he feared his support for Soviet stooge Gus Hall threatened his entrance into the CIA in 1980. This sounds like a wild satirical parody, but it isn't. A dupe for the Soviet Union rises to the top of the CIA, uses his position to shill for Islamic radicals, eggs the FBI into spying on the Trump campaign, then leaves the CIA only to resume the radicalism of his youth, calling for civil disobedience and the overthrow of a duly elected president. Brennan's only expertise on treachery comes from his own. Very good article. Very good indeed. Let's go back. Let's look at what else we have. Now, here's the other thing that I think is interesting, and I'm not going to go out and read it for the sake of time. But Lisa Page is claiming that China hacked the DNC server and not Russia. So that's out there, and I don't believe it. I'm just telling you the truth. It was Seth Rich, and before that, there was Russian interference in 2016, which was during the Obama campaign. So none of this has anything to do with Donald Trump. Actually, let's go take a look at this. I'm thinking it might be more important than I think. Lisa Page squeals. DNC server was not hacked by Russia. Lisa Page, former FBI lawyer under James Comey and Andrew McCabe, has become the largest rat to depart the sinking ship. According to testimony given by Page during 2 days of closed-door House hearing, former bosses at the FBI instructed her to cover up the fact that China, not Russia, hacked the DNC server. TruePundit.com reports the embattled Page tossed James Comey, Andrew McCabe, Peter Strzok, and Bill Presap, among others, under the congressional bus, alleging the upper echelon of the FBI concealed intelligence confirming Chinese state-backed assets had illegally acquired former Secretary of State Hillary Clinton's 30,000 plus missing emails. Federal sources said the Russians didn't do it. The Chinese did, according to well-placed FBI sources. And while Democratic lawmakers and the mainstream media prop up Russia as America's boogeyman, it was the ironically Chinese, that's not written well, it was ironically the Chinese who acquired Hillary's treasure trove of classified and top secret intelligence from her home-brewed private server. And a public revelation of that magnitude, publicizing that a communist world power intercepted Hillary's sensitive and top secret emails, would have derailed Hillary Clinton's presidential hopes overnight. But it didn't, simply because it was concealed. FBI bosses knew of the breach, yet did nothing to investigate, seemingly trying to run out the clock on the alarming revelations to protect Hillary during her heated presidential campaign with Trump. So instead of investigating the hacking of Clinton's server, FBI bosses sat quietly and did nothing to confirm the Chinese assets were linked to the government, or assess the damage such a tremendous breach posed to national security. Did the Chinese government access Hillary's emails? The FBI didn't care enough to investigate, at the risk of besmirching Clinton and further soiling her future, and further soiling her during the election. Hundreds of top secret documents and even the president's daily travel and security itineraries were on that server and intercepted by a communist country, yet the FBI sat on the evidence. Likewise, all of Clinton's and her inner circle's outgoing emails were compromised as well, sources confirm. Even the Inspector General has tipped off the FBI, specifically Strzok, about the foreign breach. Still, no timely case was pursued. That same cover-up pattern fits FBI bosses who time after time stalled and concealed other criminal intelligence on Clinton in the weeks prior to the election. We could write more detail here and ramble on, but at this point we simply ask, is anyone going to go to prison for politicizing the FBI and covering up countless crimes committed by FBI personnel in a variety of coordinated schemes to protect Hillary and the Democrats? I don't know. I sure hope so. And to tell you the truth, I'm not sure if I even believe that. I just don't know. I don't know at this case. I do believe that when Q keeps asking and Trump keeps asking, where is the server? I think they know precisely where the server is. And I think that there was very significant information passed between Putin and Trump. I think Putin passed very important information to Trump, which is going to break things open shortly. That's what I believe. Maybe it's hopeful thinking on my behalf, but that is what I believe. So, and this is very interesting too. Okay, and this is by the Conservative Tribune. Dem panic. Page may seek immunity deal to come clean on Strzok, McCabe, even Comey. The old trope of good cop, bad cop may be getting a twist, and it's no doubt making Democrats nervous. Call Peter Strzok the bad cop, the embattled FBI investigator already showing a strong political bias that almost certainly influenced his judgment on inquiries into both Hillary Clinton and Donald Trump. And he's now facing serious questions and a loss of his security clearance as a result. He put on the bad cop act again during his recent testimony to Congress, where Strzok acted aloof and uncooperative as lawmakers tried to determine if FBI officials purposely tried to undermine the candidacy and the presidency of Donald Trump. Now, fellow FBI employee Lisa Page may have a chance to play good cop and take a much more cooperative route. The government attorney who was having an affair with the married Strzok was on the receiving end of many of his anti-Trump text messages and had an inside view into the potentially widespread bias and political scheming within the Bureau. Experts, including Chris Farrell of Judicial Watch, believe Page may be willing to cut a deal that gives her leeway to unload the truth about what went on behind the FBI's doors. Well, I think Page has the opportunity to become the anti-Strzok. Farrell explained during a Monday appearance on Fox Business Network's Lou Dobbs Tonight. She's going to look for an immunity deal, or at least being treated as a cooperating witness, the legal expert continued. By simply cooperating with a congressional panel, Page would take a very different approach than the man she was constantly texting, and that could spell disaster for the liberals if Trump's claim of widespread Department of Justice corruption are true. She's seen from last week what her boyfriend was doing, and she's probably a pretty sharp attorney. She sees an opportunity or an opening to kind of recast herself, and I think she's taking advantage of it, Farrell said. He may be right on target with that assessment. Page already has spoken to several members of Congress regarding the scandal, and while those discussions were not public, participants hinted that the FBI attorney was indeed more forthcoming than Strzok. Well, that wouldn't take much. Republican Mark Meadows of North Carolina, for instance, told reporters on Friday that Page's willingness to cooperate today speaks well of her. Another Republican lawmaker, Representative John Ratcliffe of Texas, echoed that tone and said he believes Page is a very forthcoming witness. She gave us a lot of new information that we didn't have before that will lead us to ask for some more people to make some more requests for information we do not yet have, Ratcliffe said. The fact that the GOP lawmakers were frustrated with Strzok's evasive testimony but downright positive about Page's cooperation does not bode well for the Democrats. If she does strike an immunity deal that lets her dish on FBI insiders, figures like Andrew McCabe and James Comey could be hit hardest. Or rather, hardest hit. Even Barack Obama's reputation, what's left of it at least, could be on the chopping block. As Farrell pointed out on Fox Business, there is evidence that the former president himself has his fingerprints on the undermined Trump scandal. There's an earlier text message from Page where she says POTUS wants to know everything we're doing. The legal expert reminded viewers, how much more evidence do we need? At what point does Mr. Obama come out of hiding and offer his version of the facts? That's my question, Farrell said. All the hysteria over Russian hacking was all on Obama's watch. Where's the accountability? I want him disposed. Only time will tell if Page's testimony lives up to the hype, but she has everything to gain and nothing to lose by cooperating with Congress. If Farrell is right, Page could be the key to unlocking our generation's version of Watergate, with Obama playing the role of Richard Nixon. So, I don't know. I got the impression that Page was more of a cooperating witness, but on the other hand, we have to listen to Q that has said that they are both cooperating witnesses with who have had their power removed. So they're still there. They're they're cooperating witnesses, but there's no power there. The power has been removed. So I don't know. Are they playing a game of optics with us, or is that what's really going on? It's very hard to tell, and until Q comes back and begins posting again, we may have a very difficult time in ascertaining exactly what is going on, because what we observe is not always what is real. So, let's go back. Now, this is just kind of something interesting that it makes me wonder, why has nobody else thought of this? Trump, he wants to redesign Air Force One, and it'll be red, white, and blue. Now, seriously, why has nobody else thought of that? Air Force One does not look particularly American. Why not do it red, white, and blue? Like, why the heck not? I think it's a good idea. President Trump confirmed in an interview that aired Tuesday that Air Force One is set for a redesign with a red, white, and blue paint job. Trump spoke with Jeff Glor of CBS News last weekend and described his plans for the new model of the presidential aircraft. I said, I wonder if we should use the same baby blue colors. And we're not. Trump told Glor from his golf course in Scotland. Air Force One is going to be incredible, he continued. It's going to be the top of the line, the top in the world, and it's going to be red, white, and blue, which I think is appropriate. And I think it's appropriate as well. The Air Force plans to fly its war-tested 1950-era C-130 aircraft well into the 2030s and beyond through a sweeping multi-pronged technical overhaul designed to enable the propeller-flown aircraft to perform its high-risk troop transport and combat support missions for decades to come. I don't think that is necessarily, it's related, but not completely, what's to say? Trump's comments confirm an Axios report published last week that indicated the president wanted to do away with the signature light blue and white paint job on Air Force One, which he called a Jackie Kennedy color, in favor of something more American. Now, I do agree it is a Jackie Kennedy color, and it's nice, but it's outdated. So I think it's about time we had an overhaul. And maybe some of you say, no, we need to leave it as it is. It's because it's an American icon. But I don't know if I agree with that. I think it's a good idea. Let me know in the comments below what you think. We probably will think differently on this. All of us. We may all have different opinions on this, but regardless of what our opinions are, it looks like it's going to happen. So there you are. Now, I just found this, and I'm going to end on this because really all of the rest of my items are related to trafficking and so forth. And I've just been collecting more and more stuff, but I don't know why I keep hesitating to bring it. I should just bring it, but I keep thinking that if I do, I'll probably get kicked off, so I don't know how to approach it. Anyway, let's take a look at this for now. This actually really shocked me today, and come on. Let me get rid of some of this stuff so we can have. All right. Mass grave of black boys and men found in Texas, suspected to be forced into labor by government. Nearly 100 bodies of black boys and men who were likely worked to death by the state of Texas were discovered outside of Houston. Have you guys heard of this? This is the first I've heard of this, and I'm wondering why this isn't in the news. Maybe it is in the news and I've missed it. I don't know. Well, beginning construction on Fort Bend Independent School District's new James Reese Career and Technical Center, a disturbing sight was discovered. The bodies of 95 people were found in a mass grave. The bodies are suspected to be the remains of black people who were leased into forced labor by the state of Texas and subsequently worked to death. After the construction company began to break ground in February, the first remains were found, leading archaeologists on a journey that would eventually uncover 95 people. According to the archaeologists, these people were probably part of Texas convict lease system. The convict lease system first came about in Texas in 1867 when railroad companies needed cheap labor to construct their railways. Despite slavery being made illegal after the Civil War, black people were still rounded up and mass incarcerated, only to be sold back into servitude through the government's new program. This is incredibly sad. For decades, state prisons acted as forced labor camps and raised a significant portion of money for the Texas government. Although it was illegal for individuals to own slaves, when government officials came up with the convict lease system, it essentially created a loophole that legalized slavery for the government only. The system continued well into the 20th century and only ended when a reporter for the San Antonio Express began writing a series of articles exposing this horrific practice of state slavery. After the expose on the convict lease system, the government ended all the leases and brought the black men back to the prisons, where they were unfortunately still forced to work on state-owned farms or on private property the state had acquired through long-term agreements. Remnants of this system are still alive today as prisons across the country pay prisoners, many of whom are incarcerated for victimless crimes, little to no money for their labor. According to reports, the bodies found in the Sugarland location just outside of Houston were in wooden coffins. Investigators estimate that they could have been put in the ground as late as 1910. Researchers noted that the bodies all showed signs that they were severely malnourished and must have undergone massive physical stress. Rain Clark of Go Shark Environmental Consulting, who was participating in the excavation of the bodies, said there is a lot of evidence that they were doing heavy labor at the time of their deaths. Even more disturbing is the fact that many of the bodies are thought to be children as young as 14. We can tell from the state of the bone and muscle attachment features that these were heavily built individuals. Some bones were misshapen by the sheer musculature and labor, Clark told CNN. Sadly, these mass graves are not rare. It is estimated that there could be as many as 50,000 cemeteries across the state. These state-run mass graves are not unique to Texas either. As TFTP reported last year, the thousands of bodies were discovered buried under the University of Mississippi Medical Center, UMMC campus. The bodies are a result of decades-long program in a failed government institution to deal with people the state declared mentally unfit for society, including depression, those who read books, laziness, the overstudy of religion, and political excitement, to name a few. As the United States was wrapping up its dark and violent history of sentencing people to jail and death for participating in witchcraft, the state found a new progressive way to deal with those who they deemed unfit for society. Lock them in an insane asylum, eventually kill them, and then bury them in the backyard. Now, I wanted to be sure that I brought that to you because, and you know what? This is not just the United States. Canada has done similar things, certainly with its residential schools for the native population. They made it illegal for the natives to speak their own language and punished them excessively in residential schools. They left for residential schools when they were about 5 years old. They were beaten and tortured, and there are mass graves of native Indians all across Canada. So Canada is not any, they're not lily white either, but it makes me wonder how many of these mass graves exist and how much we don't know. It's absolutely horrible. Could it happen again? You bet it could. So that's why we need to be aware of history. And anyway, that's all I have for this video. And I wish you guys a good night. I've brought you my videos early this evening. So, you know, I'm just patting myself on the back here because usually I'm much later. So I may do another video tonight. I'm not sure, but don't be surprised if I don't, and don't be surprised if I do. So if you want to be subscribed, make sure that you stay subscribed because, well, YouTube has been doing some nasty things to me recently, and just make sure you hit the bell if you want to be notified when the videos come out. And I will talk to you guys later. I am keeping an eye on the queue. Well, not literally keeping an eye, but I am on the lookout for Q posts, and when Q does post, I will bring that to you immediately. So have a good night. Sleep well. Stay safe.